And for those of you who have just come this afternoon and want to know more about our program, particularly the last week, the fourth week, the One World Poetics Conference might be very interesting to some of you. And we'll be having guest poets of many ethnic traditions, including Amiri Baraka, Joy Harjo, Simon Ortiz, Jerome Rothenberg, who is an ethnopoetic specialist, and many others. There are also several readings coming up. One August 1st, which is going to be held at the St. John's Church at 14th and Pine. This is a benefit for the Action at Rocky Flats, which is going to be taking place August 4th through 9th. And there'll be films, dance, music, and poetry with artists Bonnie Carroll, Allen Ginsberg. Stan Brakhage will be showing films, Jane Franklin and dancers, Gregory Corso, myself, and others. So anybody who wants any further information about that event and events coming up at Naropa, please look for me afterwards, or Randy Rourke, who is here somewhere. Randy Rourke, who's the director of the summer writing program. Now let me turn it over to Allen Ginsberg. Thank you.
So I wanted also to re-emphasize this evening at 8, following the Venerable William Burroughs' reading, there'll be a lecture by the Venerable Eido Roshi up at Sacred Heart, a real live Zen master, just like a real live Western genius. And I think it's Monday evening at 8, Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, also poet, will be speaking at Sacred Heart. And then on Wednesday at 5, is it? Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche will be speaking in this hall. So you have a series of amazing heads addressing you. If you're smart enough to pick up on them, beginning now. William Burroughs, at the present age of 71, has been teaching at Naropa steadily every summer. Maybe one exception, but I'm not sure. I don't think any were missed since he was 60 years old, which is 11 years. One of our first adjunct instructors in the poetics department, and he has been faithfully helping us out in uniting the poetic community and inspiring the younger students here, as all over America and all over the world, with his intelligence and his insight, prajna, wisdom, and cutting through humor. At the moment, the bound proof copies of an antique manuscript from 1953 called Queer is circulating among reviewers, with a 1984-85 introduction by Mr. Burroughs, occupying about a third of the space of the book, linking his thought of 1953 and his thought and emotion of 1985. So that will be the next book published. He's also working on a long-range novel, the end of his trilogy, Cities of the Red Night, Place of Dead Roads. So the third volume, which I think the first draft of which is almost done, is The Western Lands, part of a long-range writing project that's occupied, I guess, the last 10 years. Very few writers have that much patience and devotion and energy with their work. Certainly I don't. Not many prose writers even have that sense of long-range composition. But Mr. Burroughs has pursued his subject, which is control and consciousness, examination of basic good for the last 40 years, as I remember, and is now at the height of his powers, not only with the new manuscript Queer, the new novel sequel, The Western Lands, but also a very acute, curious book called cat inside. Mr. Burroughs has 6 cats in Lawrence, Kansas, upon all of whom he projects his imagination and is like his T.S. Eliot St. Louis compeer, also interested in cats as a medium between himself and the public. And so there's a big cat book, the manuscript of which Mr. Burroughs has here. So he'll be reading from The Cat Inside, The Western Lands, and other notes. So we'll have all new, fresh intelligence from William Seward Burroughs.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to pass along a flatly insane recent news story. A man swimming in a canal in Florida attacked 2 alligators with his fists, screaming obscenities. The alligators dragged him down and drowned him, and the sheriff's office said no attempt would be made to locate or sanction the alligators. I guess he got what he was looking for. How many of you have read my novel, The Place of Dead Roads? Good. Excellent. And you will remember that Kim Carson and Mike Chase get greased in the end. Not that they're likely to stay dead. In this league of operatives, dying is like trading in your old car. Time for a new chassis. Now, I just wonder how many of you figured out who killed them. Yes? It has to be someone I didn't tell, because I told quite a few people here. Did I tell you? Well, no, that's not fair then. You see. No, it has to be someone that I didn't give the answer to. Huh. Looks like I really wrote a whodunit. So, but obviously in a whodunit, the obvious suspects are not the ones. It wasn't Bickford's agents at all. And the clues should be found on page 126. Kim was aware of the danger from Joe the Dead, thought he could handle it. Famous last thoughts. Joe says, "Here I am, the best technician in or out of hell, and he brings me back from hell to make slingshots and scout knives and zip guns. Yeah, leave the details to Joe. He left one too many." Joe laughs, a dry, rustling sound like a snake shedding its skin. I lifted that out of a spy novel. Good enough to steal. Joe the Dead belongs to a select breed of outlaws known as No's. Natural outlaws dedicated to breaking the so-called natural laws of the universe, foisted on us by physicists, chemists, mathematicians, and biologists, and above all, the monumental fraud of cause and effect, to be replaced with the more fruitful concept of synchronicity. Why, it even fits right into a song. It must be the Madam Synchronicity. Ordinary outlaws break man-made laws. Laws against theft and murder, of course, are broken every second. You only break a natural law once. To the ordinary criminal, breaking a law is a means to an end, obtaining money, removing an obstruction. To the No, breaking a natural law is an end, the end of that law. Ordinary outlaws specialize in accordance with inclination and aptitude, or they did. Many of them are on the endangered species list, with the gliding lemurs, the rusty spotted cat, and the monkey-eating eagle. Well, the monkey-eating eagle will not be missed by the monkeys. Consider the Murphy Man. How many of you know what a Murphy Man is? Not one. Your Murphy man steers a mark to a non-existent whore, having located an apartment building without a doorman and with the front door open. It's mostly a black art. Only a black man has the Murphy man voice, cool, insinuating, familiar, and the Murphy man face, sincere, unflappable, untrustworthy. He spots a mark from out of town, away from wife and kids for a night on the town. Looking for some action, friend? Yes. The Murphy man makes a phone call. It's all set up. He leads the mark to this apartment. Go up one flight, first door on your left. 1A prime grade, friend. And she's ready and waiting. He gives her a big, toothy smile. I wonder if there are any Murphy men left. And then there was the practitioners of the hype or the bill. It's the short change routine. You start with $20. You get the change on the counter. And then, oh, wait a minute, I don't want to take all your change. Give me 10, and counts it back minus the 10. It's hard to get a conviction because nobody can explain exactly what happened. I've had it explained to me many, many times, and I still don't see how it works. But the basic principle can be found in a sketch by Edgar Allan Poe on 19th century hustlers who were known as diddlers. Now, the diddler walks into a tobacco store and asks for a plug of tobacco. When the plug is on the counter, he changes his mind. Give me a cigar instead. He takes the cigar and starts to walk out. Wait a minute, you didn't pay me for the cigar. Of course not. I traded it against the tobacco plug. Well, I don't recall you paid me for that either. Paid you for it? Why, there it is. None of your tricks on traveling men. There's a neat little double bind there somewhere. Unobtrusive, insistent practitioners of the bill were almost always addicts. I wonder if there are any hype men left. Remember Yellow Kid Wild in the big store? He would set up a whole prop brokerage office. The old-time bank robbers and the burglars who knew what they were looking for, and the pickpockets trained from early childhood. The best came from Columbia, they tell me. Where are they now, the Murphy men and the hype artists? The big store. Gone, all gone. Où sont les neiges d'antan? Oh, yes. Well, here. Noteworthy is the hideously sordid yachting swindle, still practiced. They're going to buy a boat together and sail the South Seas. This swindle requires that Mark and Swindler live in the same trailer, get drunk together every night, and lay the same whore. Yellow Kid Wild would have been scandalized. Never drink with a savage was one of his rules. Well, ordinary outlaws specialize, and so do the No's. Joe the Dead specializes in evolutionary biology. He dedicates his dearly bought knowledge of pain and death to cracking 2 biologic laws. Law 1. Hybrids are permitted only between closely related species and then grudgingly. The biologic police bluntly warn to break down the lines that Mother Nature in her ripe wisdom, I can smell it from here, has established between species is to invite biologic and social chaos. Joe says, what do you think I'm doing here? Let it come down. Rule 2. An evolutionary step that involves biologic mutation is irretrievable and irreversible. Newts start life in the water with gills. At the determined time, the newt sheds his gills and crawls up onto the ordained land, now equipped with air-breathing lungs. The newt then returns to the water, where he lives out his days. It might be convenient to reclaim his gills and breathe underwater again. No glot clum flighty, says the cosmic uncle. It's the law. So for starters, Joe pulls a baby mule out of the cosmic manger. There is Mary Mother Mule, and John the Father, and the impossible child with a glowing, pulsing halo. Incidentally, the fact that John was a part-time veterinarian might, should we say, illuminate without denying the virgin birth. After all, a sterile syringe is not a corrupt and impure member. So she can still qualify as the Virgin Mary. A Kansas vet known as Joe Lazarus, after he was pronounced dead at Lawrence Memorial Hospital, having been kicked in the head by a mule, was the instrument of altered destiny. Like St. Paul, knocked off his ass on his way to Damascus, Joe Laz, following his miraculous recovery, knew what he had to do. He set out to produce a fertile mule. He exposed sperm from his horses and donkeys to orgone radiation in the magnetized pyramid. Didn't hack it. So Laz went further. He rigged a magnetized manger and bombarded the copulating animals with deadly orgone radiation, DOR. And he sewed himself into a goatskin and whipped his beast to wild pan music. Any woman hit by the whip of the goat guard will conceive in 9 months. And finally, he created a fertile mule. Skeptics pronounced Joe Laz's mule the most colossal hoax since the virgin birth. I had it up my sleeve, Joe deadpan. A quiet, enigmatic former herpetologist resident in Florida challenges Rule 2. His name is Joe Sanford. Bitten by a king cobra, he recovered and devoted himself to a study of newts and salamanders. Sanford claims to have reinstituted gills in mature, air-breathing newts by injections of a lamb placenta concentrate. The same preparation used, in fact, by Dr. Niehaus of Switzerland to turn back the clock for his wealthy patients. To name a few. This is true now. Somerset Maugham, Noel Coward, Pope Pius XIII, President Eisenhower. I recall Eisenhower waving a tiny American flag from his hospital bed with a big stupid grin on his face and wondering if he would ever die. Winston Churchill couldn't qualify because he couldn't or wouldn't lay off the sauce for 6 weeks, which was a prerequisite for the Niehaus treatment, no exceptions. You will note that Rule 2 carries the implicit assumption that time is irreversible. Sanford made a hole in time, and Joe sloshed through the hybrids. All is in the not done, the diffidence that faltered. Let others quaver out, I dare do all that may become a man, who dares do more is none. Not so, says Joe, he who dares at all must dare all. When mules foals, anything goes. When mules glows, anything folds. Hybrids unlimited. Who? It is not necessary to prove, simply to state. This is a biologic revolution fought with new species and new ways of thinking and feeling. A war where the bullet may take millenniums to hit, like the old joke about someone makes a swipe with a razor, you know. Well, miss me that time. Just try and shake your head 300 years from now. This is Dead Souls. This is from Gogol, of course, a film idea loosely suggested by a sci-fi book called Lost Souls. Dead Souls postulates that a soul is an electromagnetic field, probably several of them, a complicated grid, designed to occupy and activate a certain organism. While infinitely less vulnerable than the artifact it occupies, the soul can be dispersed and destroyed by a nuclear blast. This is, in fact, the sensitive function of the atom bomb, a soul killer. Stacked up, you understand, like cordwood and non-recyclable by the old hellfire like fucking plastics. We have to stay ahead of ourselves and the Ivans, lest some joker endanger national security by braying out, "You have souls. You can survive your physical death." Ruins of Hiroshima on screen. Pull back to show technician at a switchboard. Behind him, 3 middle-aged men in dark suits with a cold, dead look of heavy power. Technician twiddles his knob. "All clear." "Are you sure?" The technician shrugs. "The instruments say so." Opie says, "Thank God it wasn't a dud." "Oh, hurry with those printouts, Joe." "Yes, sir." He looks after them sourly. "Thank Joe it wasn't a dud. God doesn't know what buttons to push." However, some tough old souls, horribly maimed and very disgruntled, do survive Hiroshima and come back to endanger national security. So the scientists are put to work to devise a super soul killer. No job too dirty for a fucking scientist. Not even the worst of all crimes, soul murder. They start with animals when there are some laboratory accidents. "Run for your lives, gentlemen. A purple-ass baboon has survived 23 skidoo. It's the most savage animal on earth." The incandescent baboon soul rips through a steel door like wet paper. We had to vaporize the installation. Lost expensive equipment and personnel. Irreplaceable, some of them. Real soul food chefs. Cordon bleu, you might say. There's an interesting detail from the book. The soul killer gives off a smell of burning plastic and rotten oranges. Anything so bizarrely arbitrary is good enough to steal. I'll be reading some trash sci-fi unspeakable horror book and suddenly I yelp out, gets, good enough to steal. Like that agent shedding his, with a laugh like a dry rustling sound, like a snake shedding its skin. That's gets. Well, trial and error, we now have soul killers that won't quit. State of the fart. Sure, the big fart. We know how it's all going to end. The first sound and the last sound. Meanwhile, all personnel on planet Earth confined to quarters. Permanent party, you might say. Convince them they got no souls. It's more humane that way. Scientists always said there's no such thing as a soul, and they are now in a position to prove it. Total death, soul death. It's what the Egyptians called the second and final death. This awesome power to destroy souls forever is now vested in far-sighted and responsible men in the State Department and the CIA. The president, with his toadies and familiars, is now 500 feet down in solid rock, with enough fine foods, wines, liquors, hash, coke, and heroin to last 100 years, and the longevity drugs to enjoy, held off the market in the interest of national security. The president appears on national TV with his well-cut suit hanging loose on his skinny frame to pipe out in adolescent treble, alternately pompous and cracking. We categorically deny that there are any crack, so-called fountain of youth, drugs, procedures, or treatments that are being held back from the American people crack. He flashes a boyish smile and runs a comb through his unruly, abundant hair. And I categorically dismiss as without foundation rumors that I myself, the First Lady, my fag son, and my colleagues in the cabinet are sustaining ourselves on state-of-the-art vampiric technology, drawing off from the American pimples, crack, giggle, so-called energy units. His hair stands up and crackles, and he gives the American people a finger. I got mine, fuck you, every crumb for himself. Thank you. Well, I hesitated to read this piece because not wishing to identify myself with the subject, but I nominate for the most flatly disgusting passages in recent fiction the typical interview between the young intelligence operative and the chief. When Peter walked into the office, the chief smiled. Agents have been known to get frostbite from the chief's smile. Having trouble with a Jew boy? He's a bit standoffish, said Peter, non-committally. Sure he is. Well, treat a kike like a Jew and treat a high-class Jew like a kike, and he will come back moaning for more. Come on right out with it. You want to get into a nice, genteel country club? Well, we like nice Jews with atom bombs and Jew jokes. Peter could see the chief as some cod-eyed old exterminator deciding on the bait to poison a warehouse full of rats. A little molasses, a little tinned salmon, plenty of arsenic. Peter knew he was in the presence of greatness. He squirmed with the smalts of it and broke out fulsomely. I'm just beginning to realize what a cold-hearted bastard you are. The chief was pleased. He couldn't help squirming a little, but his voice was cool. Well, that's one way of looking at it. I call it staying on top of an op. The casualties could run into the millions. The billions, Peter, the billions. The chief spread his hands and smiled. Outsiders, none of our people will be touched. Operation Bunker. How long? Long enough for things to cool down, then we emerge like the phoenix, without, of course, the inconvenience of being burned. Just drop a few hints, room in the bunker for the right kind of Jew. You know what I mean, white Jews, none of that Galatian trash. Now, they tell me Portuguese Jews is the best kind, like Portuguese oysters. Peter squirmed deliciously. This was true greatness. You can't fake the real thing. You are a cold-hearted bastard, he ejaculated, white out and back. He's coming around, Chief, just like you said he would, suddenly out of a clear sky, he says. It's the kikes in our race that give us a bad name. Any trouble with a cracker boy? Not a peep. I gave him the old right smalts right down the line like you told me. What are you doing over there with the niggers and the apes? Why don't you come over here where you belong and act like a white man? Always a place in the bunker for the right kind of darky, huh? He swallowed that, did he? I thought he would. Believes in the American dream like all niggers. Well, as one menstruating cunt said to another, I guess it's in the rag, Mary. The chief smiles slow and dirty. It is Colonel Bradfield's job to investigate the practical potentials of ESP, sorcery, witchcraft, the lot. He doesn't give a shit for natural laws or what is and isn't possible. All he cares about are results. Bring me the ones that work. What'd you bring this old beast in here for? A withered old man dressed only in a loincloth, stiff with yellow piss stains, stinking like a snake cave in spring, sits down in a leather armchair. Fumigating the chair will be inadequate, the colonel decides. He's a natural chief. He can throw an operative curse. I don't doubt it. He can kill by proximity. He's got a good track record, Chief. Sure. And 80 years in the making. So how did he get that way? To be a magician, you gotta be inhuman in some way. Easiest is to eat your own shit and eat it steady. You eat it in and shit it out and eat it in again. It gets eviler and dirtier, a stink nobody can smell and live. But who am I to be critical? Trouble is, it just isn't practical. But Chief, no trace, no way it can be traced to us. The hell there isn't. You think the Ivans aren't into this shit up to the ass? They can make up the evidence, we all do it, no way to trace it, big deal. 80 shit-eating years to turn out one old human centipede can throw a curse if you hold him steady on target. I can train an agent in hours with untraceable poisons and toxins, electronic devices to produce arrhythmical heartbeats. He died in his sleep, dreaming about a beautiful, deadly woman, and all he wanted to do was die in her arms. See what I mean? We don't need it. But, Chief, we can't just throw away a thing like this. Indeed, where can we throw it? It's radioactive. Get it out of here for starters and take the chair out with it. I've been reading a lot of these doctor books lately. My Dr. Benway really shines forth as a model of responsibility and competence by comparison. Perhaps the most distasteful book of this genre is entitled A Pride of Healers. It's to be remembered there's pathology. Who decides, well, patient's got cancer or don't got it? The doctors open up, and anything suspicious, they send a hunk down to pathology, and then they stand around, twiddle their scalpels, and wait. Get a green light. It's malignant, boys. Let's go. So in this pride of prowling healers, the runty, ugly, half-impotent pathologist finds a big surgeon humping his old lady. So he carefully frames the adulterous surgeon for prostate cancer, falsifying the results. And everybody knows there's only one answer to that. The surgeon is castrated, and his nuts sent down to pathology. Holding the nuts of his enemy in his hand gets him aroused, and he surprises his wife by a real pimp fuck. She's got another surprise for her. As she comes, he shoves the severed nuts down her throat. As the Germans say, unappetitlich, unappetizing. And most of them aren't quite as lurid as that, just ordinary, no-good, greedy, callous, bigoted humans with a grossly inflated self-image. Here is Mike Sadens from Final Diagnosis, attractive, red-haired, empty as an empty waiting room. Well, how can anyone believe in God or ESP or anything like that in the face of these vast medical complexes, monuments of progress and science and rationality and healing? This wretched specimen has fallen for a 19-year-old nurse. He fucked her in a broom closet to a reek of Mr. Clean. He has proposed. She is accepted. Then she comes down with a bone cancer. They have to take off her left leg stat. Scalpels crossed, it hasn't spread. Does he still want her? She tells him to take 5 days and think it over. He does. With bleak clarity, he sees the years to come. Oh, yes, he can see where his own interests are involved. He is striding toward surgery. Big man on complex now. It takes guts to practice surgery, he says. Boy, it sure does. They do without him. Striding toward surgery, though the patient is clearly terminal. He would operate on a mummy. And she is shamming along on her prosthetic. Will you shake the lead out? I'm doing the best I can, darling. Why don't you go back to her crutches, he thinks irritably. Aloud, he says. Why don't you jet propel on your stinking farts? Admittedly, his words were somewhat unkind. But cancer does stink. Of course, it's not her fault she is in this loathsome condition, or is it? His mother always said, son, in this life, everyone gets exactly what they want and exactly what they deserve. People who are getting what they think they deserve tend to believe it. Another flash. Incongruously, Mike thinks of an old joke. The eternal traveling salesman, protagonist to the eternal dirty joke. Salesman spots an attractive woman in the club car. As fate would have it, she is in the lower berth just opposite his upper berth, and he is eyeballing her. She pops out a glass eye. She takes off her wig. She spits out her false teeth. She unhooks her wooden legs. Looks up at him pertly and says, anything you want? You know what I want. Take it off and throw it up here. He starts laughing. She demands why, and finally he tells her, and she hits him with her prosthetic, requiring 5 stitches. Look, darling, I've been thinking it over, and she throws an ashtray at him. The medical riots of 1999. It is estimated that 10,000 doctors, medical bureaucrats, directors of pharmaceutical companies were massacred in the week of the long scalpels. The killings were not by any means random. The rioters had lists. There's the bastard let me pass a kidney stone in the emergency room. It's stacked up and up. Unnecessary operations, patients dying in the emergency room. We cannot accept medical admissions from emergency. Ambulance calls disregarded. I can't send an ambulance unless I know what is wrong with her. She's having a heart attack. I can't send an ambulance unless I know what's wrong with her. She's having a coronary. I can't send an ambulance. Potentially beneficial and harmless products and treatments kept off the market. Lethal products kept on the market. A recent example are the so-called non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs for arthritis. Don't ever let any doctor talk you into using them. I took one pill. I've never been as sick in my life. In England, 8 people died of liver failure caused by this shit. And still they won't withdraw it, just change the trade name. I saw a TV show where the company representative, the lies just oozing and slithering out of him, tried to tell a woman her hepatitis could have come from some other cause. I know it was that medicine. And I know a nurse who got hepatitis from this stuff. Well, it was the burn unit walkout that set off the riots. I have this from nurses who have worked in burn units. Absolutely no morphine or other painkillers are ordered for the patients. Otherwise, there could be a danger of addiction for patients who may be in treatment for months. Even the dying are denied morphine if they have the misfortune to die in the burn unit. But doctor, my nurse informant protests, the patient will be dead in 12 hours. Don't you think I know that? This is a burn unit. We are under burn unit rules. His hands are securely tied by $200,000 a year. Everyday burn unit patients have the raw cavities scrubbed out with a stiff brush to clear away dead skin and flesh. The patients scream with agony, and very few nurses can take it. Well, a team of amateur astronauts who called themselves the Spacers landed in the burn unit when their homemade space rocket exploded. After the first scrub out, they issued an ultimatum: morphine every 4 hours, as long as we need it, or we walk out. What is this nonsense? There will be no morphine and you're not going anywhere. Meet my brother, the lawyer, doctor. You propose to hold these people against their will. It's for their own good. If they leave the hospital, they will be dead in a few days from infections. They set up a private clinic in a loft. Clashed with police raiders searching for narcotics. 3 patients shot to death. The walkout spreads like a topping forest fire. Morphine or walk. Mow, mow, mow. The doctors paw the ground uneasily like cattle scenting danger. In 17th century London, everybody got fed up to the mouth with the lawyers, and the cry went up, "Kill all the bloody lawyers!" Whereupon even the most elderly and infirm scrambled off with the agility of rats or evil spirits. Hampered by inflated self-image, the healers did not acquit themselves as well. What are we waiting for, a hospital bed? Kill all the fucking croakers. Security steps nimbly aside and the crowds rush in. Got a hotshot cutting doc here. I think he needs an operation. Hell yes, a gutectomy. Paging Dr. Streulenschnitt. That's not sloppy cut. Enter Dr. Streulenschnitt, attended by his scalpel bearers carrying 2-foot knives and saws. You is filled up with unnecessitated parts. 2 kidneys, sure bun is a Jew. Rashmit. The inner parts should not be so close in together crowded. They need Lebensraum like their Vaterland. Well, I will turn now to the cat book. Yes, definitely. The title is The Cat Inside. May 4th, 1985, I am packing for a short trip to New York to discuss the cat book with Brian Geisen, who is going to do the illustrations. In the front room where the kittens are kept, Calico Joan is nursing 1 black kitten, a little calico cat. She had 5 kittens. I pick up my tourister. It seems heavy. I look inside, and there are 4 kittens. Take care of my babies. Take them with you wherever you go. Yes. Oh, here we are, yes. I'm selecting cat food at the pet shop in Dillon's, and I meet an old woman. Seems her cats won't eat any cat food with fish in it. Well, I tell her mine are just the opposite. They prefer their fishy foods like salmon dinner and seafood supper. Well, she says they certainly are company. And what can she do for her company when there is no Dillon's and no pet shop? What can I do? What can I do? I simply couldn't stand to see my cats hungry. Well, there are many wild cats, some of them that could be tamed, cats that weigh only 3 pounds. However, there will be fewer and fewer exotic, beautiful animals. The rainforests of Borneo and South America are going to make way for what? At Los Alamos Ranch School, where they later made the atom bomb and couldn't wait to drop it on the evil East, the Yellow Peril, The boys are sitting on logs and rocks eating some sort of food. There is a stream at the end of a slope. The counselor was a Southerner with a politician look about him. Like many Southerners, he was a natural orator, just naturally full of bullshit. He told us stories by the campfire, culled from the racist garbage of the insidious Sax Rohmer. You remember Sax Rohmer, who created the insidious Dr. Fu Manchu, Hirsch Yellow Peril? And Fu Manchu went on and on like Tarzan. You thought he was dead, and then he'd pop up again. He also wrote books about evil Egyptians, the Green Eyes of Bast, the unspeakable Antony Ferrara. Well, Tony looked more like a beautiful evil woman than a man, up to his crotch in unspeakable rites and depraved practices, and secrets so foul no decent man may learn them and live. Basic postulate. East is cruel, depraved, devious, immoral, antichrist, anti-American, in a word, evil. West is humane, decent, wholesome, straightforward, moral, sincere, and God-fearing, in a word, good. Good for what exactly? Suddenly a badger erupts among the boys. I don't know why he did it, just playful, friendly, and inexperienced, like the Indians who brought fruit down to the Spanish and got their hands cut off. So the counselor rushes for his saddlebag and gets out his 1912 Colt 45 auto and starts blasting at the badger, missing him with every shot at 6 feet. Finally, he puts his gun 3 inches from the badger's side and shoots. This time, the badger rolls down the slope into the stream. I can see the stricken animal, the sad, shrinking face, rolling down the slope, bleeding, dying. You see an animal, you kill it, don't you? It might have bitten one of the boys. This book is about interspecies contact, not interspecies communication. There is a basic difference between communication and contact. Communication is designed to avoid contact, to maintain a distance across which communication can take place. Contact involves identification with the creature you contact, and this can be very painful. Communication can be forced, contact cannot. You cannot force anyone to feel. This cat book recounts my own experiences with interspecies contact. You know, when it happens, it can't be faked. In this case, of course, contacting the badger is very painful indeed. He just wanted to romp and play and get shot with a 45. Identify with that, feel that, contact that. I don't know how many of you saw the TV short on Bigfoot, tracks and sightings in the Northwest Mountain area, interviews with local inhabitants. Here's a 300-pound female slob. What, in your opinion, should be done about these creatures if they exist? A dark shadow crosses her ugly face and her eyes shine with conviction. Kill them. They might hurt somebody. A specimen of Homo sap on screen with a long-range rifle and telescopic sights. Close-cropped beard, trying to look like an adventurer, and looking like a marginal freelance journalist who writes for survival. He is quite sure big feet are out there in those hills and proposes to kill a specimen. If I lived in the area, I would be more worried about this jerk with his rifle than about Bigfoot. But I suspect Bigfoot to be a fake, like the Barnum and Bailey unicorn. Well, a camera team just happens on Bigfoot with their cameras all set up and ready to go. Lights, action, camera. There he is, about 100 yards away, walking with a strange, slow gait, taking 6 feet at a stride like a moonwalk. Scientific stride experts say this is not a human stride. Well, certainly not at 24 frames per second. I suspect it to be a man in a gorilla suit projected in slow motion. When I was 4 years old, I saw a vision in Forest Park, St. Louis. My brother was ahead of me with an air rifle. I was lagging behind, and I saw a little green reindeer about the size of a cat, clear and precise in the late afternoon sunlight as if seen through a telescope. Well, can those images, those visions be photographed? Certainly. Anything that can be seen can be photographed, and anything that can be photographed can be faked. The magical medium is being bulldozed away. No more green reindeer in Forest Park. Angels are leaving all the alcoves everywhere. The medium in which unicorns, Bigfoot, green deer exist, always thinner like the rainforests and the creatures that live and breathe in them, as the forests fall to make way for motels and Hiltons. The whole magical universe is dying. Well, life such as it is goes on. Dillon's is still open. I am the cat who walks alone. To me, all supermarkets are alike. This is the end. We are the cats inside. We are the cats who cannot walk alone, and for us there is only one place. Walk alone for us. Thank you. Thank you. Well, political program, every man a God. And how can this be accomplished? Well, to put it country simple, by doing your job and doing it well. Because there are many gods. A God of whores and thieves and pushers. A God of fevers and plagues who rides on a whispering south wind. A God of the long chance, the horse that comes from last to win in the stretch. The punch-drunk fighter who comes off the floor to win by a knockout. A God of anti-heroes and outrage. The ship's captain who put on women's clothes and rushed into the first lifeboat. The pilot who bailed out of a burning plane, leaving his passengers to crash. A God of future space travelers who are ready to leave the whole human context behind and take a step into the unknown. Every man a God, that is, if he can qualify. You can't be a God of anything unless you can do it. Thank you. Yes.
Just want to announce there are tapes available of this reading immediately on demand. If you want to see Tammy, who's in the back over there, and I think those sell for $5. Also, I'd like to announce that on August 3rd, there'll be a reading here with Bernadette Mayer, Jack Collum, and Michael Brownstein, who are all guest writers with the summer writing program. That'll begin at 8. And also, again, announce the benefit reading for the Rocky Flats Action, which will be August 1st at St. John's Church at 8 p.m., $4 for students. And also Friday, August 2nd at 9 p.m. at the Center for United Ministries, Andy Clausen and Barbara Bennett. So there's a lot of very interesting poetry activity this week in Gregory Corso and Amiri Baraka on August 4th here at Naropa. We have schedules outside if you want to make notes of all these things. And again, Edo Roshi, a very wonderful, inspiring Zen master, will be speaking tonight at Sacred Heart, which is up on 13th and High Street, I believe, and that's at 8 p.m. That's part of the Christian Buddhist Conference. That'll be at 8 o'clock tonight. Okay, good night and thank you. Good evening, thank you.
An English cat-hater of the upper classes, he became a lord in course of time, I hear. Well, this limey son of a bitch confided to me he had trained a dog to break a cat's back with one shake. And I remember he caught sight of a cat at a party and snarled out through his long yellow horse teeth that crowded out of his mouth, "Nasty, stinking little beast." Well, I didn't know anything about cats at the time. Now I would get up from my chair and say, "Pardon me, old thing, if I toddle along, but there's a nasty, stinking big beast here." I will take this occasion to denounce the vile English practice of riding to hounds, so the sodden huntsman can watch a beautiful, delicate fox torn to pieces by their stinking dogs. Heartened by this loutish spectacle, they repair to the manor house to get drunker than they already are. No better than their filthy, fawning, shit-eating, carrion-rolling, baby-killing beasts. Warning to all young couples who are expecting a blessed event: get rid of that family dog. What, our Fluffy harm a child? Why, that's ridiculous. Long may your child live to think so, little mother. Fondly dawdling the child and drooling baby talk when Fluffy, in a jealous rage, rushes on the baby, bites through its skull, and kills it. That's an actual case, and there are many. A very quite recent one: jealousy caused dog to kill my child. Small dog, too. It was a Scottish Terrier. Dogs are the only animal other than man with a knowledge of right and wrong, so Fluffy knows what to expect when he is dragged whimpering from under the bed where he cowers. He realizes the full extent of his trespass. No other animal would make the connection. And dogs are the only self-righteous animal. And another horrible practice: walking to hogs. Here are Clem and Cash down in the Everglades of Florida. Get their jollies killing wild hogs with their knives. Jump on the hog's back and cut its throat. But they couldn't indulge their loutish pastime without a pack of 30 yipping, yelping hounds to distract and immobilize the pigs. When your hounds bay a stand of pigs, you gotta get there fast, because a hog's tusk can open up a dog like a surgeon's scalpel. And sometimes you arrive too late. It brings tears to the eyes to see a courageous dog half gutted out coming back for more. To whose eyes does this bring tears, you bestial redneck? Pigs out there minding their own business, living on roots and berries, and outchargers Clem and Cash and their horrible hounds. I have eulogized the fennec fox, a creature so delicate and timorous in the wild state that he dies of fright if touched by human hands. The red fox, the silver fox, the bat-eared fox of Africa, all beautiful animals. Wolves and coyotes in the wild condition are quite acceptable. What went so hideously wrong with the domestic dog? Man molded the domestic dog in his own worst image. self-righteous as a lynch mob, servile and vicious, replete with the vilest coprophagic perversions. And what other animal tries to fuck your leg? I am not a dog hater. I do hate what man has made of his best friend.